What's up? Welcome to my full card picks UFC 288. We're only a few days away, and I have some surprise picks. And I'm also going to let you guys know what my go-to ideal parlay would be if you're a betting man. Now, me personally, I haven't bet on a single fight since UFC 269 when Charles Oliveira and Poirier fought, because the one fight that I got wrong on my parlay was Amanda Nunes losing to Juliana Pena. I bet on Amanda Nunes. Stupid to throw on the parlay given the odds. But listen, I got a good parlay for you. And I have some good underdogs too. So without further ado, let's get to the most important fight on this card. We got to break down one of the all-time greats, Parker Porter and Braxton Smith. Now, don't get me wrong, guys. We know how good Parker Porter is, and betting against him is basically the same as betting against John Jones. It's just not a good idea. You don't bet against Parker Porter. Things go bad. You're going to lose money every time. Braxton Smith, 33 years old, is making his UFC debut. I don't know his height, but I put down a 405-pound bench press because look at the guy. He looks like a big old power lifter, but it doesn't matter. I'm not a betting man, as I said, but if I were to ever put money on someone, it probably wouldn't be Parker Porter after he got knocked out a few months ago, guys. I'm not going to fuck around. Even though it's Braxton Smith's UFC debut, he's 33. Parker Porter's old. He's coming off of a knockout loss to one of the Taffa brothers. It was a bad KO. And at the end of the day, man, what does Parker Porter actually do? I mean, he's basically, a heavyweight guy. He's basically a fat guy you throw in the ring and whatever happens, happens. And I'm going to go with Braxton Smith in this one. I've never seen him fight. And he got the big Texas boy look, man. Parker Porter, more of a Nebraska look. But I'm rocking with Braxton Smith. Now, this is the worst breakdown on the card from me, but I've never seen Parker Porter. I've never seen him fight and walked away impressed at all. So he's got pillow hands for the heavyweight division. If he's going to win, it's going to be a decision, and it's always going to be a sloppy one. So I know he's an all-time great. I know he's a legend. He's just, he's past his prime, man. And prime Parker Porter was nothing special either. So on to the next one. Khaos Williams and Charles Oliveira's teammate Rolando Bedoya. That is right. Guys, this is probably the easiest pick on the entire card for me. This is one of my locks. I'm not going to give away my parlay yet, but I've watched Rolando Bedoya fight. He trains out of the same camp as Charles, the shoot box camp. They're big on brawling. They're big on heavy pressure, marching forward, taking damage to give their own. He's probably got a good grappling base. He's got a few submissions throughout his career, but his first UFC matchup is going to be against the absolute missile thrower, Khaos Williams, who's only lost in the UFC with a couple of close decisions to a guy like Michel Pereira. And that guy's absolutely huge for the welterweight division. Now, Khaos has been out of the game for a while, but we know this guy has dynamite in his hands. And I'm going to go with the first round KO. Rolando Bedoya is sloppy on the feet. He doesn't move his head all that much. What do you know? He trains with Charles. Unlike Charles, he's not very fast. He's not very athletic. And he's sloppy. He doesn't defend his chin at all. I've seen this guy get hit, smile, and get hit again. I'm banking on a first round KO. Lock it in. Khaos Williams is going to get this done. Could Rolando Bedoya take him down? I don't think so. Khaos Williams is an absolute tank of a man. People have tried to take him down and they failed. I'm confident on this pick. Rolando Bedoya is going to go in there sloppy, and he's going to get KO'd, and this will be a good lesson for him to learn early on in his UFC career. There's no shame in losing to a guy like Khaos Williams in your first ever fight, and maybe someday we'll see Khaos as a ranked fighter. On to the next one. Phil Hawes and Ikram Aliskerov. This guy was made famous by Khamzat Chimaev chinning him and putting him into the shadow realm with an uppercut. Now, that was one of the most beautiful KOs I've ever seen. The fact that that is what's made this man famous and that's what put him on the map is a little bit unfortunate, but if he was trash, we would never hear about him, period. So we know that Khamzat got a good KO over a good opponent. Ikram is a beast. Grappling-wise, the guy is phenomenal. Now, guys, when it comes to who he's beat, he's gotten some good wins over a couple guys that are actually in the UFC right now, like Dennis Tululin, and he's got a good submission on the Dana White Contender Series. He has a bunch of submissions in Brave. He's a big finisher, but the issue is Phil Hawes has 100% takedown defense in the UFC, and he's a Division I wrestler. And I don't care what you want to say about Phil Hawes. Wrestling is not a weakness in his game. I'm actually pretty sure that he took down Roman Dolidze, which is what wound up letting him get his fucking knee torn apart. And that's ultimately why he was a sitting duck waiting to get KO'd, because he tried to wrestle with Roman and found out the hard way that you don't go to the ground with this guy. But as far as someone taking Phil Hawes down, I don't see it happening. And I'm actually going to go with Phil Hawes. I know that's going to surprise some of you. And at the end of the day, it just boils down to the fact that I don't know if Ikram Aliskerov has the kind of power and dynamite and speed in his hands to be able to evade the heavy shots of Phil Hawes early. And it's not just the heavy shots. Phil Hawes has dominated people before throughout the course of a long fight, like Jourdain Win, who he's dominated. He has a really good sneaky front kick up the middle. He has a fantastic fast, snappy jab. And the only people he's been knocked out by are Roman Dolidze after he made a dumb decision to go to the ground with him and he got his knee torn apart. So it's like, if you don't knock out Phil Hawes with his knee torn apart, what are you even doing? And Chris Curtis, who has pretty good boxing defense, who is very tough, has a good chin, and trains with guys like Sean Strickland, and they just tend to be pretty good at fighting. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, I don't see Phil Hawes getting KO'd by Ikram, and I don't see Ikram taking him down, at least not early. Now, if Phil Hawes, with all that muscle and all that size, gasses himself out early trying to finish Ikram and doesn't get it done, I could definitely see Ikram getting away with the victory, maybe taking it to a decision, outstriking Phil Hawes, maybe taking him down and landing the first takedown on Phil Hawes throughout Phil Hawes' career and, submitting him in the third, because it's possible. And Ikram could also hurt him on the feet and jump on a submission too. But I trust in Phil Hawes. He's explosive. He's fast. He has the reach advantage. Ikram, it says 72-inch reach down there. It's actually 75 or 76. So that's incorrect. He has a long reach. But Phil Hawes is good on the feet, man. He's fast. I know he's a little bit of a glass cannon. He's gotten clipped before. His chin isn't all that great. But again, he's only getting KO'd by really big punchers. And I don't see that kind of power from Ikram. Ikram's game is a grappling game. He reminds me of Khabib in the way that he strikes. He moves forward. He throws flying knees. He throws head kicks, flashy shit, just to fucking get you to second guess yourself on the feet so he can shoot in for a takedown. Phil Hawes is an absolute brick wall when it comes to that. Division I wrestler. I don't see him getting taken down. I think he's going to knock Ikram out in the first round. That's my ultimate pick. I'm going with the underdog here. I see everyone choosing Ikram. I'm going with Phil Hawes. And if Ikram beats this man, especially if he takes him down early, put him on your radar, because this is going to be one of the better 185-pound fighters. And it's good to see this guy get into the UFC. He's still young, 30 years old. Phil Hawes coming off of that terrible knee injury and a knockout loss. But I'm going to go with Phil Hawes to stop this guy in his UFC debut. Just an absolute monster on the feet. Remember how he KO'd Jacob Malkoun on the Khabib Gaethje card? I mean, just embarrassed him. And Jacob Malkoun's a tough guy. He's a good grappler too. He trains with Robert Whittaker, has out-grappled a lot of people, has some pretty good wrestling, tenacious on the feet. I see Phil Hawes knocking him out in the first round. That is my pick. Frevola and Drew Dober. This is my fight of the night, guys. All right? And I know that Charles Jourdain and Kron Gracie, that's also going to be one of the better fights on the card. Just stylistically, it's going to be a scrap. I'm honestly going to go with Matt Frevola here. I know that's going to take some of you guys off guard, and this is my riskiest pick of the whole card. I know you guys think it's risky for me to choose Aljo. You probably think it's risky for me to choose Phil Hawes. I'm just going to admit it right now. I don't have the best reasons for picking Matt Frevola. Drew Dober is more tested, more proven on the feet, but Matt Frevola has only gotten KO'd by massive power punchers like Terrence McKinney, and we all know that Drew Dober has a granite chin. I mean, just look at it. It's a fucking fire hydrant. But he got dropped by Terrence McKinney, and say what you want about McKinney, the guy has dynamite in his hands. Like, he's one of the biggest power punchers I've ever seen in the lightweight class. You know what I mean? So Matt Frevola coming off of a knockout win over Ottman Azaitar. Knocked the guy out before that. I forgot his name, but Drew Dober, we've seen this guy knock a lot of people out coming off of a win over Bobby Green. And I think that actually kind of ended Bobby Green's career in a way, because Green came out looking really slow, and his reaction time, it just was off in his fight with Jared Gordon, which he was actually losing up until the headbutt. But the fact that he knocked out Bobby Green was very impressive. I picked Green to go in there and just piece Dober up and light him up for 3 rounds. And Dober sent him, on a path to a decline. That's what I honestly think. And Dober has dynamite. We all know it. He's fast. He knocked out Terrence McKinney. He's knocked out beasts like Alves. And it would make sense to choose him. He has way more finishes in his career. He has a much better record in the UFC. And you know why I'm ultimately picking Matt Frevola? We know that he has a wrestling base. It's because he has more options. You know, he's had good submissions throughout his career, and we've seen him out-grapple pretty good guys. We've seen him out-grapple Jalen Turner back in the day. Now, that was Jalen Turner when he was a baby, but at least Matt Frevola has that option. Drew Dober has been submitted 4 times in the UFC, not only by Islam, not only by Beneil Dariush, but also by a guy like, Mercier. He got submitted by Oliver Mercier, who is the current PFL champion. The guy has been subbed, and he's rock solid. He looks like a brick wall. He's probably hard to take down. I will admit that. But I'm going to go with Matt Frevola. I think he'll be able to mix it up a little bit. I don't think he's just going to go in there to try to bang with Drew Dober. That's what Dober's expecting. Maybe that's what Matt Frevola is putting out there. And if he does that, it's probably going to be a Drew Dober KO. You know, at the end of the day, even though Matt Frevola has dynamite in his hands and he's fast and he's a little bit younger, he'll probably get KO'd if he tries to bang with Dober for 3 rounds. But I think that if he mixes it up, I think he can submit Drew Dober. That's going to be my pick. I'm going to go with Matt Frevola by submission, which is going to throw a lot of you guys off. But I see that age of 34. I'm looking at these wins from Dober, and he's banging with guys. You know what I mean? He's banging with stand-up guys. Guys like Terrence McKinney blowing their wad. A guy like Bobby Green who doesn't protect his chin, but Bobby Green ain't shooting no takedowns. Terrence McKinney's not really shooting a lot, even though he's got a ground game himself. But I'm going to go with Matt Frevola by submission. This is the riskiest pick of mine on the card. I could see it, man. I could see him mixing it up. But if he tries to bang with Dober, he's getting KO'd. On to the next one, Charles Jourdain versus Kron Gracie. Now, you see the record of Charles Jourdain, 4-5. But that doesn't really tell the tale of what his career's been like. I think that this man is much better than his record. He had a very good fight with Nathaniel Wood last fall, and it was a great scrap. Nathaniel Wood's just that good. He's a fucking dark horse in that division, the 145-pound weight class. But Charles Jourdain, he lost to Shane Burgos. I was there live. He won that fight. Shane Burgos had 1 round that he banked from grappling, and he had a lot of control time, but Charles Jourdain outdamaged him for a few rounds and definitely won the 3rd round. He should have won that fight. And then you look at his wins over guys like Lando Venata, and he's had really good performances in the UFC where he's able to just style on guys and outstrike them and overwhelm them later on in the fight. He had that beautiful Spartan kick finish to one of his fights a few years ago, and he's good on the feet, man. And the thing about Kron Gracie is, yes, he's a legendary Gracie family member. He's got the lineage. He's an absolute monster, stud on the ground. Came into the UFC submitting Alex Caceres, but when he fought Cub Swanson, and Cub Swanson was still good at the time, he has the typical jiu-jitsu guy stand-up. Now, he's tough as nails on the feet, which is something that a lot of people respected him for after the Cub Swanson fight because it was a good scrap, and he was taking shots, and he was giving them too. He's a little bit slow, and maybe all of this time off, he's going to come back with sharpened-up tools, and he's going to be on a completely different level with a stand-up, but I don't bank on it, especially not against a guy in Charles Jourdain. And yes, Jourdain has a bunch of losses in the UFC, but he's young. He's 27 years old. He's a stud on the feet. He doesn't have a lot of power in his hands, but as far as his volume goes, his ability to mix it up, his versatility on the feet, he's very unorthodox too. I'm going to pick Charles Jourdain, and I'm going to pick him by decision. I think that Kron Gracie needs a finish, and I think he needs a submission to win this. Now, he could have also been spending all of this time off wrestling, with the wrestling shoes on in the wrestling room. He could go out there, double leg Charles Jourdain, or trip him up against the fence and then get a submission in the 1st round while they're both dry. That's definitely possible, but I think it's more likely that Charles Jourdain is going to be prepared to do everything it takes to stay on the feet. He's got the youth. He is, a new MMA fighter, and I feel like the new age guys are just a little bit more well-rounded, and I'm going to go with Charles Jourdain by decision. I think he's going to outstrike Kron Gracie and just beat him up for 3 rounds. I really do, and I think we'll see the toughness of Kron Gracie on display yet again. But I'm going to go with Charles Jourdain, and I think he's probably learned a lesson since the Shane Burgos loss in which he was out-grappled in that 1 round, and that's the round in which he lost. But he looked fantastic in his last fight against Nathaniel Wood, so I'm picking Charles Jourdain. On to the next one, Movsar Evloev versus Diego Lopes. It pains me to say that, and it pains me to see the black and white cutout version of Dana White Contender Series alum making his UFC debut. Listen, Evloev is going to have to slip on a banana peel to lose this fight. That's never been a more true statement. He has this in the bag. It's not even close. But I do have to say this about Evloev. I think this guy's better than Ilia Topuria. I rewatched his fight with Dan Ige, and I forgot how much of a total domination the third round was. And Dan Ige, he's no slouch on the ground. The guy has pretty good cardio. He's strong. He's explosive. And Evloev completely dominated him and humiliated him. And if you talk about stand-up, this guy has improved since his fight with Akeem Dawodu. He's 6-0 in the UFC. He won that fight. But he's tricky on the feet. He's explosive, and he's fast, and he's pretty defensively sound. I see him constantly after he throws his combinations. He has his hand grilled into his face, ready to take a shot back. So he's good defensively. I don't understand how Dan Ige survived the flying knee that he got hit with in the first round, because that would have knocked most people out, but he is very good. He's wild, but he's also controlled. And he's got an interesting background. This guy is like a computer scientist. You know, he's got a degree in programming or computer science, and he's like the non-soy version of Ryan Hall. You know, big-brained. He's got the bronze. Only 5'7", but this dude is built, and he's shredded to the bone. And I don't know if this is going to be a catchweight bout, but Diego Lopes, I'm sorry, this is the worst possible fight you can take. I don't even know if you're going to learn many lessons from this, because it's probably going to be quick. I'm going to go with a first or second round submission for Evloev. Again, Diego Lopes has a puncher's chance in this fight, but I don't see that happening. I think Evloev's too good. I'm going to go with a submission. That's my pick. I'm very confident in this pick. I don't know what the odds are for this, but Evloev's probably a massive favorite at this point. I would have been dying to see him fight Bryce Mitchell. I think that would be really competitive. I think that Mitchell got bullied a little bit on the feet by Ilia Topuria. And I think you would give Evloev some more issues on the feet, because I don't see Evloev just dominating Mitchell on the ground. I think it would be a stand-up battle. And even though Evloev is pretty good, he doesn't have crazy power like Ilia Topuria. And Mitchell did have moments in the Ilia fight. He had plenty of moments on the feet, just that people forget about it. And he was a little bit undersized and outgunned. I think it would have been a much more competitive fight. I would have chose Evloev anyway to win by decision, but I wouldn't have minded an underdog pick in Bryce Mitchell. Be on the lookout for a submission, first or second round from Evloev. Jessica Andrade versus Yan Xiaonan. I forgot to put their names up, my bad. I think Jessica Andrade is cutting weight for this. So she's moving back down into the lower weight class, and I'm going to pick her to win. 33-year-old Yan Xiaonan. I was under the impression that she was younger than that, and she was going to be like the next women's MMA star from China, but I'm going to go with Jessica Andrade. I don't see any finishes on the record of Yan Xiaonan. And when I don't see any finishes on your record and you're going up against Jessica Andrade, who is the big power puncher finisher with high volume in the women's divisions, I'm going to go with Andrade every time. I think in order to beat Andrade, the blueprint is out there. You have to take her down, and maybe Xiaonan can do that. I'm probably butchering her name. I'm sorry about that, but I don't see her being able to just ragdoll Andrade, especially in the lighter weight class where Andrade is going to have the strength advantage. And we've seen her pick up Rose Namajunas and slam her on her head. So it's not like she's a nobody when it comes to wrestling takedown defense. I'm going to go with Andrade by decision. That is my ultimate pick. I think at the end of the day, she's just going to be outgunned, outpowered, and I can't see her winning. Gilbert Burns and Belal Muhammad, get your banana peels ready if you have a big bet on Belal Muhammad, and bring him to Jersey because you're going to need it. Gilbert Burns is going to beat Belal Muhammad. I'm picking him by KO, and I am rock solid confident in this pick. At the end of the day, Belal Muhammad's path to victory is survival mode. He needs to survive, he needs to take damage, and he needs to bank on having success in the later rounds. He needs to clinch up against the fence, but that's his way to victory, and I don't think that's a great, likely path to choose. Gilbert Burns is the better striker. Gilbert Burns is the better grappler. Belal Muhammad's the better wrestler, but everyone talks about Belal Muhammad's pace. Yes, he has good cardio. He doesn't really tire out that much. We've seen him put on a furious pace against Wonderboy, who is a striker, who he can just, do whatever he wants to on the ground, essentially. He actually looked better on the ground than Gilbert Burns in that fight. And I've said time and time again that Gilbert Burns is not like this destroyer when it gets to the ground, but if you talk about having success against him, it's non-existent. Khamzat Chimaev took him down and didn't have any success down there. Took him down easily, but that's Khamzat fucking Chimaev. That guy is an absolute monster with his strength, with his size. And Belal Muhammad doesn't have the ability to go out there and shoot like 20 takedowns, like an Aljamain Sterling, just to get you thinking, just to get you into a reaction fight. And because he doesn't really have that ability, and if he does try to take you down, it's going to be a couple of times around max. And Gilbert Burns also has good takedown defense and is a tank of a man and is going to get right back up to his feet and has the ability to threaten arm bars on bottom. I don't see Belal shooting that often. And if that's the case, it leads me to believe that he's going to be standing with Gilbert Burns, moving around the side of the cage laterally, trying to pop him with a jab and a 1-2 every now and then. And maybe a body kick here and there. The thing is, Gilbert Burns' approach as of recent has been to come out of the gates slowly, but he's not stationary. He moves around a lot. He keeps a safe distance. He's not getting in range of his opponents. And because he's always twitching, and you can tell he's explosive, and he's feinting level changes, and he's moving his hands like this, and he looks just like a monster of a guy, his opponents know that if I close the distance, this man's going to throw something. And because Gilbert Burns goes out of the gate slow, and his opponents already right off the bat respect his power without even getting hit, he has the ability to, again, warm up into a fight. He's not blowing his wad. And people talk about him maybe gassing out in this fight. I don't see it happening because of the way he fights now. He's reserved. He's measured. I think at some point in the first round, Gilbert Burns is going to find an opening on Belal Muhammad. He's going to unleash that right hand, which is freakishly fast. I mean, I'm getting excited even thinking about this because Belal Muhammad's going to get hit. And I'm not saying Gilbert Burns is going to drop him with the first shot that he lands, but that right hand is a fucking piston, dude. And Gilbert Burns is going to crack him with it. Belal Muhammad's not going to be able to evade it. And I think from there on out, Belal Muhammad's going to have massive respect for Gilbert Burns. Burns doesn't have the best chin, but the people he's been dropped by are guys like Usman, guys like Chimaev, tons of power. Guys like Dan Hooker when he was draining himself to get down there in a different weight class, and he's so much better on the feet now. He's going to have to respect the power of Gilbert Burns. That's going to make him think twice about closing the distance. And whenever these guys get in range between each other, Burns is going to have the power advantage. He's going to have the speed advantage. He's much better with his defense these days. I've seen him putting his guard right back up to his head after he lands a shot, moving his head away, getting out of range. I just don't see Belal Muhammad doing anything to this man on the feet. He was getting tooled up by Sean Slowpoke Brady. You know what I mean? And fighting Vicente Luque, you're fighting a Muay Thai tortoise, a turtle. The guy is slow. He's stationary. Burns is moving around. He's short. He's compact. He's explosive. You don't really know where he is. Nowadays, he keeps distance. Like, Belal Muhammad's really against the odds. And once Burns warms up and starts to land some shots, I'm telling you, he's going to start marching Belal down here and there, uncorking right hands, hooks, big leg kicks, and Belal's going to get bullied up until he gets KO'd in the second round. I guarantee it. He's going to get knocked out. I think he's going to get dropped in the first round, and I think Gilbert Burns is going to pick up the confidence, pick up the pace when he understands that Belal's not that fast, that Belal has nothing for him on the feet. He's going to knock him out. And if Belal tries to level change and shoot a takedown, he's going to leave himself open to dealing with the monster that is Gilbert Burns on the ground. And I don't see him getting submitted, but I think that Gilbert Burns will get right back up to his feet, threaten some submissions, and deter Belal Muhammad from winning the fight. I don't think that Gilbert Burns is going to go for broke in the first round and gas himself out. He's too smart for that these days. He's going to win this fight. On to the main event, Aljamain Sterling and Henry Cejudo. I am fascinated with this matchup. I think that the bantamweight title fights are the most compelling title fights in the UFC, given that I think it's the most competitive and skillful division. I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys this isn't a close fight, but Henry Cejudo is against the odds, in my opinion. He's 36 years old. That is years older than any bantamweight, flyweight, or featherweight champion. Like any lightweight champion, I think. He would be the oldest champion ever throughout all of those four weight classes. And I'm not picking this fight just based on that, but I think Aljamain is going to be an issue for him. We've never seen someone test Henry Cejudo's grappling like Aljamain's about to test it. I know that Henry Cejudo's the better wrestler. He loves to flex the gold medal. And Aljamain Sterling is out here saying, I'm not going to be deterred by Henry Cejudo's wrestling accomplishments. I'm going to shoot takedowns. I don't care if I fail 15 of them, because he usually does fail 15 of them in order to get one. The issue is he needs 2 takedowns in this fight That's it. He needs a couple of takedowns, max. And I trust him enough to outstrike Henry in another round. Because if he does get the back, he's going to stay on there for the entire round. And Henry Cejudo's never dealt with that. On the feet, yes, I agree. Henry Cejudo's the better striker. But because Aljamain Sterling is going to be mixing it up and level changing all the time and just trying to clinch up and annoy Henry Cejudo by putting him into a reaction fight, it's going to get exhausting. Cejudo's going to be most dangerous early on and in the last few rounds, but because of Aljo's range, because of his unorthodox strikes and the way that he doesn't really have a pattern on the feet, it's hard to prepare for. Yes, I'm sure Henry has figured out an opening on Aljamain Sterling, but in real time, you have one chance to make something happen. And it's not like Cejudo's just going out there and knocking people out instantly. You know what I mean? The TJ Dillashaw fight was a one-off, and TJ was basically a zombie, a skeleton that was drained completely. Aljo is a pretty decent chin, despite the fact that he's gotten KO'd pretty badly one time. He does have a decent chin. And people talk about the cardio. In the 4th and 5th round of the Peter Yan fight, even though he got out-grappled and held down the whole 4th round by Yan, he got the back before that situation in the 4th. And he got the back against Petr Yan in the 5th. Now, when I say got the back, he didn't get the body lock completely and drag it to the ground, but he was able to climb the back on the feet, and Petr Yan shucked him off. But my point is, Aljo still had a pretty decent pace in the 5th. He was going out there and giving Petr a lot to work with, and Petr won the round pretty clearly, but he didn't just bulldoze Aljo on the feet. And I think that Henry Cejudo kind of needs a finish. I could see him going out there wide-eyed with that gold medal, Olympic grit and competitive instinct, trying to take everything that he's worked for in the 5th round and just making it happen, spamming right hands, shucking him off of him with that last bit of effort, and maybe knocking Sterling out or getting a 10-8 round to steal the fight. I think it's more likely that Aljamain Sterling is not going to get finished, that in the early rounds he's going to be able to use his range, his lateral movement, and he's going to be able to pick and prod at Henry Cejudo with kicks, front kicks, leg kicks, side kicks to the body. Every now and then he'll chuck a jab out there or a spinning back fist, something wild, and he'll be level changing. And ultimately, he'll get that back at some point. He doesn't even have to land a single leg, a double leg, or a trip. He can climb it. He can fail 2 takedowns and chain wrestle into a third. I think he has more ways to get it done. I don't see Henry Cejudo having a lot of success if he level changes. Aljamain is not as dangerous on his back, but at the end of the day, I feel like it would be a little bit of a waste of energy. He might shoot a takedown here or there just to show Aljamain something different, because we've seen Aljo getting taken down at will by Petr Yan in their first fight. It's a close fight. It really is. I just think if it goes to a decision, I'm picking Aljamain Sterling. And who knows, if Aljo gets him down early or in the first 2 rounds, he could submit Henry. He can get him out of there. Like sitting on the sidelines and game planning and coaching all of these amazing fighters like Jones, Zhang Lee, Davidson Figueiredo, that's great. And he's probably the biggest brained version of himself that he's ever been. He's probably the most Ernest Hemingway-esque Henry Cejudo that we've ever seen. But you're not going to have your team of lab coats in there when you're actually fighting, and you only have 25 minutes. And I get it. He's good when he's thinking on the fly, and he's prepared, and he's sparred. So is Aljo. And Aljo has all this time to study Henry too. And I feel like because Aljo's not just a striker, it's going to be a little bit easier for him to prepare for Henry. You know what I mean? I get it. Henry's a Olympic gold medalist, but it's like Henry has probably changed a lot on the feet. Has he added a whole new grappling arsenal to his game to where he can submit guys? I don't think so. And 36 years old, man. Aljo's smack dab in the middle of his prime. And we also have to mention the fact that he's strong as fuck. Like, he's shredded to the bone. He's big for the weight class. He's got long limbs. He's got a weird build, and he's a strong motherfucker. And I'm sure Henry's coming in here with a little bit of extra body fat. I don't see him in the same shape that he was in when he fought Dominic Cruz. And you're looking at these wins like Cruz, bro, Aljamain Sterling would probably finish Dominic Cruz. Like, Cruz is the least dangerous guy you could ever take on in a title fight in bantamweight, especially after his prime, especially on a couple days' notice in which Henry Cejudo fought him. The Marlon Moraes fight, amazing. But Aljo has the, Corey Sandhagen win, which is just as good. I'm going with Aljamain Sterling, and I'm picking him by decision. Maybe he could go in there and submit Henry Cejudo early. And if Cejudo gets it done, I'll be surprised because of how old he is. But I also won't be surprised based on the fact that he's an Olympic gold medalist and he's a better striker in general, but he's no Volkanovski, he's no Wonder Boy. It's a tough fight for both guys. I got to go with Aljo. Okay, guys, I have 2 parlays for you. The first one is the less risky of the 2. It's a 4-leg parlay. Khaos Williams, Gilbert Burns, Jessica Andrade, and Charles Jourdain. And the riskier of the 2 would be Aljamain Sterling, Gilbert Burns, just because I'm not confident in Gilbert Burns, and the odds are pretty close, right? They're within 100 of each other. I think Belal Muhammad's like plus 100 and something, and Gilbert Burns is like minus 100 and something. So I would say the riskier of the 2 would be Aljamain, Gilbert Burns, and Charles Jourdain. I don't know what the odds are for Charles and Kron Gracie, but I assume they're not that crazy. I trust on Charles Jourdain to get this one done. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video.